Numbers don't panic, people do. Let's look at the psychology driving today's market. A known threat and an ambiguous threat can produce different reactions even when neither identifies a particular outcome. The puzzle is not simply that uncertainty feels uncomfortable. It is that uncertainty changes what participants believe they can compare, price, hedge, explain, and communicate to others. A known risk supplies boundaries. Participants may disagree about probability or severity, yet they can still discuss a recognizable event, a range of consequences, and possible responses. An unknown risk removes those boundaries. The difficulty is not merely estimating the outcome, it is deciding which outcomes belong inside the estimate. The distinction matters for interpretation and response. The opening question asks why ambiguity can provoke a sharper response than a clearly described bad scenario. The answer lies in the loss of a shared framework for evaluation. This episode treats ambiguity aversion as one possible amplifier, while preserving structural explanations, differences among participants, and the fact that uncertainty does not reliably predict direction. Known risk is not safe risk. A clearly defined threat may still be severe, but its definition allows participants to organize scenarios, assign conditions, and compare possible responses. Unknown risk is not necessarily larger. Its distinctive feature is incomplete structure, missing probabilities, unclear transmission paths, uncertain duration, or disagreement about which information matters. Notice the distinction. Risk concerns outcomes within a frame, while ambiguity concerns uncertainty about the frame itself. The second problem can make ordinary comparison difficult. When the frame is stable, participants can debate assumptions. When the frame is unstable, they may also debate what counts as an assumption and whether available categories remain useful. That extra layer can increase hesitation. A participant may tolerate a bad estimate more easily than a situation in which several estimates depend on an undefined set of possibilities. The crowd creates the feedback. Ambiguous conditions encourage defensive interpretation. Visible defensiveness becomes information for others, and that observation can deepen the sense that the situation is unknowable. The first mechanism is scenario expansion. Without a clear boundary, participants may imagine a wider range of possible outcomes because they cannot confidently exclude remote or unfamiliar paths. This does not mean imagination determines price. It means the decision process may assign value to preserving flexibility when the relevant scenario set remains unsettled. Flexibility can become more important than conviction. Participants may reduce commitments, demand more compensation, or delay action because the cost of being trapped feels harder to evaluate. A second mechanism is model uncertainty. Even when data exist, participants may doubt whether familiar relationships continue to apply under the new conditions. Simple narratives can reduce discomfort while narrowing inquiry. That doubt changes the question from what does the model predict to whether the model deserves to be used. The latter question can disrupt coordination among participants. A third mechanism is communication difficulty. Known risks can be summarized through shared categories, while ambiguous risks may produce competing descriptions that cannot easily be reconciled. Now, competing descriptions can make disagreement look larger than it is. Two participants may hold similar concerns but use different causal stories, time horizons, or definitions. Conversely, identical language can hide different assumptions. Agreement on a word such as uncertainty does not prove agreement about what is uncertain or how it could matter. Ambiguity aversion offers a psychological interpretation. Participants may prefer a clearly bounded, unfavorable possibility over an unbounded situation that resists comparison. The missing frame can matter as much as the estimate. The mechanism remains conditional. Some participants may welcome ambiguity because it creates optionality, dispersion, or opportunities unavailable when expectations are tightly organized. That gap can complicate coordination across the market. Information seeking can intensify under ambiguity. Participants search for signals, expert views, analogies, and behavioral cues that might restore a workable frame. Attention may shift toward behavior as a substitute signal. Here is the feedback loop. Urgent information seeking increases attention to each new signal. Heightened attention magnifies interpretation, and magnified interpretation can make the environment feel even less settled. Social proof becomes especially influential when private models feel weak. Participants may infer that others possess better information and adjust based on observed action rather than direct evidence. Price is evidence of transactions, not a direct reading of emotion. Rapid adjustment may reflect uncertainty, but it may also reflect financing constraints, liquidity withdrawal, or genuine fundamental change. Unknown risks also complicate hedging. Protection designed for familiar scenarios may appear incomplete when participants cannot identify the relevant transmission path. Participants may therefore value reversibility more heavily. The resulting demand for flexibility can affect liquidity. Market makers, lenders, and participants may become more cautious when they cannot estimate how positions interact under stress. That caution can be rational. Wider uncertainty about outcomes and counterparties may justify a different willingness to transact without any psychological distortion. Observed caution then becomes part of the information environment. The psychological layer enters when ambiguity itself receives weight beyond the estimated damage of any specific scenario, influencing attention, language, and the desire to escape uncertainty. Shared narratives may temporarily reduce ambiguity. A simple explanation can coordinate expectations even when the explanation remains incomplete or weakly supported. Model uncertainty can outlast uncertainty about the event. Look, this coordination can be stabilizing or misleading. It may help participants organize decisions, yet it may also suppress alternative paths that later prove relevant. Revelation of information can reduce ambiguity by narrowing the scenario set. Yet information can also increase uncertainty when it exposes previously ignored dependencies. Different groups may simplify the same event differently. Therefore, more information does not automatically create calm. Its effect depends on whether it clarifies the frame, changes the estimated outcomes, or reveals new unknowns. Different participants occupy different uncertainty gradients. Expertise, access, obligations, time horizon, and position can make the same event feel known to one group and ambiguous to another. That subjectivity prevents a single market-wide measure of unknown risk. Collective behavior emerges from overlapping but unequal interpretations of what remains unresolved. Interpretation can spread faster than verified knowledge. A structural explanation may dominate when new information directly changes cash flow expectations, financing conditions, supply, demand, or the capacity to transact. Shared language may fail to create shared understanding. A clearly known risk can also trigger a larger adjustment than an ambiguous one when the known outcome is severe, immediate, or poorly reflected in current positions. Some participants rationally prefer acting early under ambiguity because waiting could reduce available options. Their behavior need not reflect fear or bias. Fast interpretation still does not establish causal accuracy. Others may wait because action itself creates difficult to reverse exposure. Opposite decisions can therefore emerge from the same uncertainty without either being psychologically defective. Those differences can create disagreement without new facts. Another limitation is hindsight. After uncertainty resolves, the path may look obvious, making earlier caution appear excessive even though the relevant possibilities were genuinely unclear at the time. Psychological interpretation should preserve the information set available during the decision. Later knowledge must not be projected backward as proof that ambiguity was irrational. That value depends on constraints and available alternatives. A validating conceptual case is a corridor partly obscured by dense vapor. The danger is unknown, but the inability to see the path changes how movement is planned. The metaphor does not predict whether the corridor contains danger. It explains why limited visibility can increase the value of caution, flexibility, and reversible steps. The opening question can now be answered. Ambiguity may produce a sharper response because participants cannot agree on the boundaries needed to compare outcomes and coordinate decisions. The response is driven not only by possible damage but by uncertainty about transmission, probability, duration, and whether familiar models still apply. Ambiguity can increase the appeal of simple narratives. That loss of structure can amplify attention to others' behavior. When private evaluation weakens, observed transactions may carry more inferred information than they actually contain. Emotion can amplify the move, but structural conditions determine whether uncertainty becomes costly. Liquidity, leverage, obligations, and available alternatives shape the translation from ambiguity into transactions. The uncertainty gradient is therefore not a simple ranking from calm to panic. It describes how the quality of knowledge changes the decision process. Liquidity conditions can magnify or soften the response. A known bad outcome can sometimes be absorbed methodically because participants share a frame. An ambiguous outcome can sometimes resist pricing because the frame itself remains disputed. The strongest conclusion is conditional. Ambiguity can matter independently of estimated magnitude, yet it remains one influence among fundamentals, positioning, incentives, and market structure. Positioning determines how much flexibility participants possess. Now, application begins by defining what is unknown. Separate uncertainty about probability, impact, timing, transmission, and the reliability of the model being used. Optionality can become valuable while scenarios remain open. Then distinguish missing information from disagreement. Participants may have the same information but interpret it differently. or they may genuinely possess unequal access to relevant facts. Study the herd without following it. Observe whether defensive behavior reflects shared ambiguity, rational constraints, or inference from others' actions. That difference changes how choices are organized. Compare psychological and structural explanations. A sharp adjustment may reflect ambiguity aversion, but it may also be a direct response to changed fundamentals or disappearing liquidity. Ask what would falsify the ambiguity interpretation. If reactions track clearly defined new information and participants share a stable model, ambiguity may add little explanatory value. Behavioral analysis remains educational. It cannot identify the next market move, quantify unknown risk without evidence, or provide a trade, hedge, or timing instruction. Some uncertainty may already be embedded in decisions. Observe the behavior, not the prediction. Use the framework to classify uncertainty more precisely while preserving multiple explanations and avoiding certainty about collective emotion. Other uncertainty may arrive outside existing assumptions. The practical implication is to improve the frame before making the story louder. Clarify what is known, what is estimated, what remains undefined, and which assumptions could fail. Unknown does not automatically mean catastrophic, and known does not mean harmless. The task is to separate magnitude from ambiguity. Don't follow the herd, study it. See you next time.